Hello everybody, and welcome to part 5 of the Banned and Censored Media Iceberg. I thank you so much for clicking on the video. We have come to the final part of this iceberg, and what will probably be the final iceberg I do for a while. I want to say thank you to all of you who have been with me for this iceberg, and I'm very excited to bring you this episode, as there's quite a few unique and different entries here. So, I thank you so much for watching, and let's get straight into the video. Enjoy. The Satanic Bible. The Satanic Bible was a book written by Anton LaVey and was released in 1969. The book is a massive collection of observations, rituals, and essays. The book is widely considered the biggest piece of philosophy in the Satanic religion. This book, due to its pretty dark subject matter, was the subject of a court case after a man in prison was found in possession of the book. The book has been panned by religious groups and leaders and has been subject to many controversies and attempted bannings. Knights of Horror. Knights of Horror is a series of comic books created by Joe Shuster and first began publication in 1954. These comics followed stories and illustrations of things such as bondage, fetish, and other things in a similar vein. The comics were very provocative for the time and even today, and this led New York state courts to ban the books in the state. Eventually, the trial went to the Supreme Court, and they determined that the books could be destroyed in accordance with New York state law. This led to burnings of the comic books in the entire state, and the comics did remain legal in most other places outside of New York. Peach's Rub music video. Rub was a song released on the album of the same name and was released by the band Peaches in the year 2015. The album received moderate success. However, the song Rub and its music video received a lot of infamy for the video's extremely gratuitous nudity. The music video shows basically everything it can show and is, in turn, pornography. The music video was so bad that the video is outright banned from being shown on YouTube. The video can be found elsewhere, and I assume you're probably going to go look it up. The Gulag Archipelago. The Gulag Archipelago was a book written by Alexander Solzhenitsyn and was released in 1973. The book tells accounts of people who were held inside of Russian gulags and the things that they experienced. The book wasn't actually banned anywhere. Many had thought it was banned in Russia, and it's believed for a time it was. However, nowadays the book is available to purchase and read in most every country, including Russia. Mang and Ecker. Mang and Ecker was an underground comic that was created by David Britton and was released in 1989. The comics were considered controversial from their release, as the comic was known for its extreme violence. This violence led the comics to be banned after 9 issues of publication. These bans would come in 1992, and nothing from these comics have ever really popped up again, as they technically are still banned as the ban was never lifted on them. Harakiri. Harakiri was a French satirical magazine that first released in 1960. The magazine actually was a precursor to a previous entry that we talked about in this iceberg, the Charlie Hebdo magazines. The Harakiri magazines were pretty much as controversial as some of the Charlie Hebdo magazines. This resulted in a short ban of them in France in 1961 and 1966. Other than that, the books have been mostly left alone. El Inferno. El Inferno was the first ever feature-length Italian film to be released and was released in 1911. The movie uses the story of Dante's Inferno as Dante travels through the 9 circles of hell. The movie was very revolutionary for its time and still holds up today as a pretty decent movie. The movie did receive several attempts from the church to ban it as they viewed it as blasphemy. These attempts were mostly failed, however some did succeed in making sure certain theaters wouldn't show it. The movie can be watched nowadays in its full form. Boiled Angel. Boiled Angel was a comic book series released by Mike Diana and was released in 1990. The comic didn't see much success. However, what it, or its creator, did see was a long legal battle. This was due to the comic line breaching obscenity laws in the US. This was due to the very strange and lewd artwork that was contained within its pages. He eventually was sentenced to community service and probation. The comics haven't had another book published since these legal battles and most likely never will. The Turner Diaries. The Turner Diaries was a novel written by William Luther and was released in 1978. The book sees as a revolution in the US, then leads to a full-on race war, and all white people and Jews are exterminated. I obviously don't need to go into why that is horrible, and most people thought it was horrible. The book eventually stopped being sold basically everywhere as no place wanted to carry it. The book isn't necessarily banned, but it pretty much has been blackballed from selling at any store and most websites. Siege. Siege is a collection of essays gathered and placed into a book by James Mason and was released in 1992. The book is actually pretty similar to the last entry, in which the person who made it was an advocate for anti-Semitism. The book was, like the last one, also blacklisted. However, it also received an outright ban in Russia from being sold. This was due to its connections with possible terrorist groups in the country. The book is available to purchase and read in most other countries, however is relatively difficult to get in some states. Death of a Princess. Death of a Princess was a movie released by Anthony Thomas and was released in 1980. The movie is a drama documentary about a Saudi Arabian princess and her lover who were executed because of adultery. The movie was only banned in Saudi Arabia. This was due to the movie's depictions of Saudi customs as they deemed it offensive. The movie is still banned there to this day, however remains available in most other countries. 177. 177 is a game that was released in Japan in 1986. The game sees you take the role of a rape and you follow a woman home and rape her. That is it. That's the game. The game, for very obvious reasons, was extremely controversial on and after its release, and because of this, the Japanese government immediately issued a recall and censoring of the game and its materials. This was edited down scenes of the actual assault that you commit, as well as several other things. The game, even with the censoring, still is very graphic given the material. NOFX Heavy Petting Zoo. Heavy Petting Zoo was an album created in 1996 by the band NOFX. The album didn't really receive too much attention, and the music wasn't really cared for too much. However, the album cover did get banned in Germany due to the cover containing zoophilia on both covers. This is just absolutely strange, and it's strange how only Germany banned this. The album can be listened to on Spotify if this picture interests you and want to go listen to the music associated with it. Viva Maria. Viva Maria was a movie that released in 1965 and starred Viva Moreau and Viva Bardot. The movie saw as two women leave behind their successful circus act and become revolutionaries. The movie was fairly successful and garnered a decent amount of attention. However, it was banned for its movie and video release in Texas of all places due to the sexual and anti-Catholic content. This resulted in a couple-year ban before it was lifted. The movie can be watched there and most other places nowadays. 137-minute cut of A Clockwork Orange. A Clockwork Orange was a movie created by Stanley Kubrick and was released in 1971. The movie was very well received, and plenty of people loved it. However, this version that people loved was actually a cut of the movie that was slightly edited down from the original 137-minute cut. This was because the movie had been given an X rating, which meant only people above the age of 18 could watch it. This resulted in several scenes being cut to give it an R rating. Some of these scenes included more torture scenes, as well as scenes showing sexual assault. All in all, the movie is still really good despite the cuts and edits, and if you haven't already, I suggest you go give it a watch. Serial Killer, the board game. Serial Killer, the board game was a board game released in 1991. The game is pretty self-explanatory. You play as a serial killer. The goal of the game is to kill as many people as you can across the United States without being caught by the police. The game was banned in Canada due to its very morbid content. The board game is no longer in publication anyway, and it doesn't seem like there is a single listing on the entire internet for a purchasable version of the game. Girls Scream Aloud. Girls Scream Aloud was a story written by Darren Walker and was released in 2008. The story was about the band Girls Aloud and all of them being killed. This is of course absolutely terrible. It was so terrible that it went to UK courts and a trial was held due to it being called obscene. However, after the trial, the story wasn't banned or censored as no punishment was issued. The story can be read online nowadays if you're really interested. Muslim Massacre. Muslim Massacre was a game released by Eric Vaughn and was released in 2008. The game is probably about what you assume it is. A game where you kill Muslim people in a massacre. The game is a top-down shooter, and for obvious reasons, it was and still is extremely controversial. The game was banned in several Middle Eastern countries for reasons I probably obviously don't need to get into. The game is still banned in these places, and probably is for the better. Tweeny's Favorite Songs. Tweenies was a kids show that first aired in 1999. The show was decently popular with kids, so much so, it ran for 390 episodes. The show, despite these 390 episodes, never really had any controversy other than one episode. That episode being episode 252, Favorite Songs. This episode was pulled from airing after one of the characters in the show dressed up as TV host Jimmy Savile, a man who had multiple sexual assault charges brought onto him. Because of this, the episode was pulled from airing and hasn't aired anywhere else since. The Gods Laugh on Mondays. The Gods Laugh on Mondays was a book written in 1995, and we don't actually know who wrote it. The book was written under the pen name Reza Koshnazar. The book upon its release received immediate backlash to the contents in the story. This was because the book was written in Iran, and in the story, a boy is raped by his male classmate and can't decide if he liked it or not. This led to a lot of controversy surrounding the book, and led to the book being burned whenever it was found. So, while it isn't actually banned anywhere as the country never issued an official ban, several countries in the Middle East have made it their mission to eradicate the book from existence. Getopoly. Getopoly was a parody board game of the board game Monopoly. The game was created by David Chang and was released in 2003. The board game is a very, very racist version of Monopoly. That's about it. Racist Monopoly. The board game, in the very few retailers that decided to carry it, was pulled off the shelves after its release, as Hasbro sued the man who created it for the similarities between the two games. That was the reason given, although I assume there was plenty of other reason to want the game removed. The game can be purchased online off of eBay or other places if you really want to play it. Agony in Pink. Agony in Pink is a Power Rangers fan fiction that was created by a person only known as the Dark Ranger. The fan fiction was written sometime in 2007 and is widely regarded as one of the worst fan fictions ever created. It is basically all about the torture of one of the female Pink Power Rangers. This ranges from all kinds of mental to every kind of physical torture. This was so bad that several websites in Australia banned the fanfiction from being on it at all. There aren't really any pictures or anything that I can show you, but just know that this fanfiction is horrible, and if you want to read it, it is probably somewhere online. The Peaceful Pill Handbook. If my video hasn't gotten demonetized already, it probably will now. The Peaceful Pill Handbook was a book written by Philip Nietzsche. The book talks about the many different ways of assisted suicide. The book talks about the many different levels of peace and comfort that can be achieved using different levels of euthanasia. It goes in depth into several different ways of this, and you would think that with this content it would be banned in several countries. However, it was only ever banned in one, that country being New Zealand. Other than that, it is relatively easy to purchase. Los Nodos. Los Nodos was a kids' TV program that was first started in 2000 and ran until 2001. The program actually wasn't really banned. However, due to the content it showed having several adult animated shows, this resulted in the program being taken down completely. This has actually resulted in the program and its existence being scrubbed from the face of the earth. The only evidence of its existence is in this teleguide. This is actually a piece of lost media that probably will never be found. Venus in the Cloister. Venus in the Cloister is an erotic fiction novel that was created in 1683 by an unknown author. The book was about a nun who learned about and would practice many different sexual acts with herself and other nuns. This for the time was basically viewed as tyranny, and because of this, the books would be burned. The church viewed this book as a massively destructive force against them, and did everything in their power to destroy it. They did a good job for the most part. However, some original copies survive to this day, or you can just buy a new updated copy if you really want to. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back crushed death animation. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back was a game created by Naughty Dog Studios and was released in 1997. The game was pretty well received across the world. However, in Japan, the game had one part of it that was censored. This was the death animation in which the main character would be crushed. This would result in his head being put into his shoes. The animation itself wasn't violent or graphic. However, the animation was very similar to the Kobe child murders that went on around the time, as kids would be found with just their heads in their shoes. Other than this, the game received really no censoring or bans in any other places for any other reasons. Alright everybody, I thank you so much for watching. I really did enjoy this entire Iceberg. I'm really glad I could make it, as this was something that I hadn't seen anybody else do, and it was something I'm really interested in. If you didn't watch any of the previous parts, be sure to go check those out, as they are all very interesting, and there's lots of interesting things in those. I just thank you all so much. If you did enjoy this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as it really does help out the channel. I don't want to keep this outro going for too much longer, as this video is already long enough as is. So I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.
We gon' be alright, we gon' be okay. We gon' be alright, we gon' be okay.